Pharaoh's star secret. As the burning rays of the sun, god Ra scorched the sands of the Giza Plateau, Nefertari stood in the shadow of the Great Sphinx, studying a papyrus. The young archaeologist was trying to decipher the new hieroglyphs discovered in recent months. These symbols did not correspond to any known Egyptian script. "Lady Nefertari," a young apprentice called out as he ran up to her. "The new excavation results are in. There is something you will want to see." Nefertari carefully folded the papyrus and took the stone tablet the apprentice held out. Her eyes widened and her breath caught. "The eyes of Osiris," she murmured. The tablet revealed a secret chamber beneath the Sphinx, a room the pharaohs never mentioned, a room unknown even to the gods. After hours of excavation, the team finally reached the mysterious chamber. Before them stood a huge metal door covered with strange symbols. The symbols did not resemble hieroglyphics, nor any other known ancient writing. Nefertari touched the symbols on the door with trembling hands. Suddenly, she felt a vibration and the door slowly opened. When they entered, they were shocked by what they saw. This was not a temple, but a control room. The walls were covered with star charts and strange devices. A crystal ball in the center of the room suddenly glowed, and holographic images came to life. Strange-looking beings were showing images of a battle, a terrible conflict between the stars. Nefertari watched with bated breath. "By the spirit of Anubis," she whispered, This is the war of the gods." Holograms showed how the war had reached Egypt. Pharaohs, pyramids, even gods. All these beliefs were actually a reflection of this cosmic conflict. Days later, Pharaoh Amenhotep held a secret meeting with all the priests and nobles. Nefertari entered the throne room on shaky legs and described her discoveries. "Great Pharaoh," she began, "we need to rewrite the story of our gods. The battle of Osiris and Set, the journey of Ra. It is all true, but not in the way we think. These were the repercussions in Egypt of a great war between the stars." A murmur rose in the hall. Nefertari continued, "And now, we are the heirs of that war. The chamber under the Sphinx has left us a message and a warning. The war of the gods is not yet over, and Egypt could be the next arena of this war." Pharaoh Amenhotep stirred uneasily on his throne. "So what should we do, Nefertari?" Nefertari took a deep breath. "We must prepare, my great pharaoh, and perhaps we must reach for the stars." Months passed. Similar structures were discovered all over Egypt. Each one contained information about a different aspect of the battle of the gods. One day, as Nefertari was working in the temple of Karnak, there was a burst of light in the center of the room. A tall, blue-skinned being appeared before her. "Greetings, Nefertari," the being said, his voice echoing in Nefertari's mind. "I am Ra, representative of the Council of Stars. I have come to speak with you." Nefertari looked at the being with shocked curiosity. Why now?" A sad expression appeared on Ra's face. "Because time is running out. The War of the Gods is entering its final phase. And unfortunately, Egypt is the key to that war." After hours of deliberation, Nefertari delivered Ra's message to the pharaoh. The War of the Gods has been a conflict between the forces of good and evil for thousands of years. And now, the final battle was approaching. "But why Egypt?" asked Pharaoh. Nefertari took a deep breath. "Because Egypt is where the blood of gods and men mix. Thousands of years ago, the warring sides mixed their blood with ours. We are the living legacy of that war." As Pharaoh and the priests tried to digest this information, Nefertari continued, "Ra and the Council of Stars want to cooperate with us, to end this war without repeating the mistakes of the past." The debate went on for days. Some priests favored cooperation, while others thought it would be a sacrilege against the gods. Finally, Pharaoh decided to cooperate, but there were conditions. Egypt would decide its own destiny. As the months passed, Egypt began to change rapidly. The technology of the stars became part of everyday life. People began to discover long-forgotten talents. Magic and sorcery became powers accessible to everyone, not just priests. Nefertari was at the center of this change. Together with Ra, she was preparing Egypt for the coming war, but they were also trying to find a peaceful solution. One day, in a secret room inside the Great Pyramid, Nefertari addressed the pharaoh and the priests. "We must not repeat the mistakes of our ancestors. This war cannot be solved by violence. We must be the balance of the universe." Ra shook his head. "Nefertari is right. Egypt holds the key to ending this war, because you carry the blood of both gods and men. You are the balance." As Pharaoh and the priest discussed this idea, suddenly the walls of the temple began to tremble. A guard rushed in. "Great Pharaoh, the sky is splitting." Everyone panicked, but Nefertari tried to stay calm. She turned to Ra. "Our time has come, hasn't it?" Ra nodded solemnly. "Yes, the final battle begins. But remember, you don't have to fight to win the war. Fight to win the peace." Hours later, huge skyships appeared in the Egyptian sky. The two sides faced each other, ready for battle. Nefertari, with Ra's help, sent a message to all sides. "Stop! There will be no winner in this war. We, the Egyptian people, are the children of both gods and men. We are the balance you have created. Let us resolve this conflict peacefully." There was a long silence. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Then, miraculously, the guns began to fall. After days of negotiations, the Interstellar Peace Treaty was signed. Egypt was recognized as the protector of this treaty. Nefertari smiled as she looked out over the Nile Valley from the top of the Great Pyramid. Egypt had passed the greatest test of its history. She was now a respected member of the stars. Ra came to her. "What do you think, Nefertari?" Nefertari took a deep breath. "We have finished the war our god started, but this is only the beginning. Now our real mission begins, to keep the peace between the stars." Ra nodded. "And you are the only people who can do that, for you know best what is conflict and peace, darkness and light." Nefertari looked up at the stars. The lights she had once seen as the home of the gods were now full of hope and excitement. Egypt had become part of the family of stars. But it was also the beginning of new challenges, mediating between different civilizations, adapting to interstellar politics, learning new powers. It was all waiting for Egypt. Nefertari smiled at these thoughts. "Our new journey begins," she murmured. And so a new page of Egyptian history opened. They were now children not only of the Nile, but of the whole sky. There was an endless future ahead of them, countless stars to explore and many new gods to meet. The traces of the War of the Gods had brought them here. But now these traces were lighting the way to peace and hope. Egypt was ready to take its destiny into its own hands, and the stars, like the eyes of Ra, continued to twinkle as witnesses to this new story. As Nefertari descended from the top of the Great Pyramid, she felt the weight of Egypt's new role on her shoulders. A year had passed since the signing of the Interstellar Peace Treaty, and Egypt had undergone an incredible transformation. In the courtyard of the Temple of Karnak, not only priests, but ordinary people were now levitating. On the banks of the Nile River, boats powered by crystal energy glided. And most importantly, in the middle of the Giza Plateau, a gigantic spaceport was rising. Pharaoh Amenhotep summoned Nefertari to an emergency meeting. When she entered the throne room, Nefertari immediately sensed the tension. Next to the pharaoh stood Ra and the other priests. "Nefertari," Pharaoh said, his voice trembling with worry. "We have bad news. A group that refused to sign the treaty has established a base in the Sirius system. They are asking the Council of Stars for help." Ra stepped forward. "These rebels want to restore the power of the old gods. If they succeed, the entire galaxy could be plunged back into war." Nefertari took a deep breath. "What are we supposed to do?" Pharaoh frowned. We need to send a delegation. We must resolve this crisis diplomatically. And I want you to head that delegation, Nefertari. Nefertari's eyes widened. Me? But I am only an archaeologist, not a diplomat. Ra smiled. You are the one who unites the old and new worlds, Nefertari. You are the best person for the job. So Nefertari found herself at the head of Egypt's first interstellar diplomatic mission. She was accompanied by the young priest Imhotep and an advisor from the Council of the Stars named Thoth. The ship departed from the spaceport at Giza and traveled beyond the speed of light towards the Sirius system. As Nefertari looked out of the ship's window at the stars, she thought that her ancestors could never have imagined this sight. When they arrived in Sirius, the sight was breathtaking. Huge space stations, crystal cities, and thousands of spaceships. But amidst all this splendor, the rebel-controlled red planet glowed menacingly. The rebel leader was an ancient Egyptian god who called himself Apophis. When Nefertari and her delegation were welcomed into his palace, they felt as if they were back in ancient Egypt. Apophis looked down at them from a golden throne. "Ah, little people," he said, his voice shaking the room. "Have you come to interfere in the affairs of the gods?" Nefertari gathered her courage. "We are no longer little people, Apophis, and you are no longer gods. We are all equal beings in this universe." Apophis's eyes flashed with anger. "Equal? We gave you life, civilization, everything, and now you reject us?" Imhotep stepped forward. "No, we are not rejecting you. We want to grow with you, but no longer as your children, but as your partners." The arguments went on for days. Nefertari and her team were learning the intricacies of diplomacy, while at the same time discovering the strengths and weaknesses of the ancient gods. One night, Nefertari was strolling in the palace garden when she met Neith, a young assistant to Apophis. Neith looked at Nefertari with sadness in her eyes. "You know, Apophis is right," Neith said. "We have given you so much, but perhaps we have taken too much." Nefertari nodded. "Yes, you have given us much, but we have given you something too. Change. We have grown because of you, but you can change because of us." This conversation sparked an idea in Nefertari's mind. The next day, when she appeared before Apophis, she made a bold proposal. "We are not asking you to give up," Nefertari said. "On the contrary, we are offering you a new role. Sit on the Council of Stars as the representative of Egypt and other ancient civilizations. Share your wisdom and power with us, who are now your children." Apophis's eyes widened in surprise. There was a long silence. Then, slowly, he nodded. Perhaps you are right, little human. Sorry, Nefertari." And so, a new agreement was signed. The old gods would now be part of the Council of Stars, but they would no longer have absolute power as before. Humanity and other races would be free to determine their own destiny. Back in Egypt, Nefertari and her team received a hero's welcome. Pharaoh Amenhotep organized a great festival to celebrate this achievement. The celebrations along the banks of the Nile now included not only Egyptians, but beings from all over the galaxy. But Nefertari's mind was elsewhere. At night, she met Ra beside the Great Sphinx. "Tell me," Nefertari said. "This is just the beginning, isn't it? Greater challenges await us." Ra smiled. "Yes, Nefertari. The galaxy is big and mysterious, and now Egypt is part of this great family. New discoveries, new challenges, and perhaps new dangers await you." Nefertari took a deep breath. "Then we must be ready. We must work to make Egypt great not only on Earth, but also in the stars." Ra nodded. "And I believe you will guide Egypt on this path, Nefertari. You are no longer just an archaeologist, but a leader." As the years passed, Nefertari's vision came true. Egypt has become a major player in galactic politics. Combining old wisdom with new technology, it solved many crises and pioneered new discoveries. The Great Pyramid was no longer just a tomb, but a galactic university. the Temple of Karnak became a forum for different races to meet and exchange ideas. And the Nile Delta was a vast harbor where spaceships landed and took off. As Nefertari grew older, so did her wisdom. She was now a revered figure not only in Egypt, but throughout the galaxy. But she still liked to go to the Sphinx every day and contemplate both the past and the future. One day, as she sat with a young apprentice, watching the setting sun, he asked her, "Lady Nefertari, what have you learned most on this journey?" Nefertari smiled, her eyes far away. "The most important thing I have learned, my dear apprentice, is that change is inevitable. But change can be exciting, not frightening. I have learned to look to the future without forgetting our past. And most importantly, I have learned that when we are united, even the stars have no limits." The apprentice nodded, his eyes shining with admiration. "And what about the future? What future awaits Egypt and the galaxy?" Nefertari looked up at the first stars beginning to appear in the sky. "The future, my dear apprentice, depends on how we shape it. But I am hopeful, for now we know that whether we are on the banks of the Nile or around a distant star, we are all children of the same universe." And so, as the sun set behind the Giza Plateau, Nefertari and her young apprentice sat in silence, contemplating the future of Egypt and the galaxy. The Sphinx watched them, a silent witness to this new age, as it had been for thousands of years. Egypt, once a mere river valley civilization, was now an interstellar power. And this journey was only just beginning. The future was full of endless possibilities, and Egypt would continue to find its unique place in this great galactic family.